Gordon, warm welcome to the podcast. It's absolutely brilliant to have you on.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Today we're going to be talking about your tips for sort of 8 solutions for common grassroots problems that a lot of grassroots coaches will have. But before we get into that, tell us a bit about your football journey.
Yeah, well, I've been with Coerver for 32 years, probably, Jimmy, as you know.
Yeah.
Long time. But way back in the day, seen that first ever VHS video, you know. I think everybody's seen the same video. I don't know if it's one video, but anyway, but that video, you know, watching that as a young player and just seeing the kids working with the ball and, you know, Charlie and Alf and the whole thing about, you know, ball mastery and ball field game moves and how to break down defences. And as a young kid, as a young player, seeing that just really inspired me.
Yeah.
So I took a trip to London, met with your dad at the time, 30 plus years ago, and never looked back since. Travelled the world, been with Coerver, and doing a lot of, you know, just fell in love with it. It really hooked me, and it's just it's been such a key part of my life, and it's what I do.
I think it's so good because obviously we're friends and you've been part of the Cover family for so long. Your experience from a football perspective is really interesting because you kind of wear two hats, right? You've got this unbelievable rich experience in the grassroots game, but you've also got experience working at some brilliant clubs as well, right? And I think the audience will get to understand your experience when we talk, but can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the highlights from both?
Yeah, and again, I put it down to Coerver because it's where I started, and always loved football, and I think that's key, that, you know, the love of the game. But it drove me to want to know more. Still, you know, always evolving, so always want to learn, and still got that passion for that. And I think that kind of drives you in the game, and so much so I've had so much great experience. You know, I was out in Spain doing coach eds. I was in Scandinavia doing coach eds. All over the world working with clubs. Got a great partnership with Benfica, as you know.
Yes.
Did work at Glasgow Rangers. Travelled a lot out with the Saudi FA through Coerver again. We did some coach educations and just travelled a lot, and had a lot of experiences. Worked with some pro clubs in my time as a coach at Livingston, places like that. Rangers, as I say, as a coach educator,
and the SFA, of course.
And the Scottish FA, involved in the performance schools at the time, but there was a new project. It's now it must be 10, 12 years in now, but back when it first started, there were 7 of us, and again it was about you know, working with the talented young players in the country would be identified, and on a daily basis go into 7 schools across the country with these talented youngsters, working every day with them for 4 years, and it was great. And right up to present day, where we're now working with the Emerging Talent Programme in Scotland, so with the Scottish FA, we're currently delivering to all the talented young girls that are coming through to get into the next generation professional clubs.
What age group, Jay, is that?
Yeah, so you're talking 11, 12.
11, 12.
And so most of these kids are at grassroots clubs or next generation pro clubs. But the idea is to give them extra training, the time and the detail, if you like, to hopefully progress and get into a next generation club if they're not already in one, and just give them that extra training and that detailed practice.
Brilliant.
And so that's going great. That's 2 years in already, you know. Yeah. Time just flies, you know.
And talk about the grassroots highlights. I mean, through your career over 30 years, you must have worked with thousands of players, thousands of clubs. What are some of the highlights?
We were just talking about that earlier, you know. I think the biggest thing, like, you know, one of the things is you watch some of these players, whatever level they go to, but how football's impacted them, and you as a coach and as an organisation, you know, you're always players coming up to you in the street or people you're meeting, you know.
What just happened just now?
Just happened just there, exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about, you know. And it's just a great vibe because, you know, I think it's more than football. It's the influence you've had in them that, you know, if they've went on and had a great career, fantastic. Or they've done well in the game, fantastic. Are they still playing at whatever level? But I think impact them as people, and that the memories that you create. You know, memories are everything. You know. Yeah,
100% believe that, G. I think, you know, the way you've impacted many people's lives, all of our colleagues around the world as well. It's so positive, and it's brilliant.
We're lucky guys.
Very lucky.
We're very lucky to be involved in the game.
Absolutely right, G. Let's get to the topic. So you scribbled down 8 kind of common things that you've seen throughout your long career.
Yeah.
And there may be some solutions to the problem. So can you give us number one, kind of the number one that you scribbled down?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is that it's a big Coerver thing that I think we do quite well at Coerver is players practicing away for practice.
Yeah.
You know, how do we get them to do that, and how do we engage them to do that? Because you know they come to training, and it depends what maybe they train once a week, twice a week, maybe even 3 times a week. But how we motivate them to go away from practice and do some work, you know, at home. So as coaches, that's also our responsibility. Of course, the love and the desire from the kid has to be there. They want to do it.
Yeah.
But we can definitely encourage them to do, and I think it's how you set that up.
Yeah. How do you do it, Jay?
Well, our sessions, right through our emerging talent centres, to our performance academies, or the kids that we're working with, boys and girls, is we'll always set our sessions are always set around a theme, you know, and then we work from the core skills needed through into the practice and the theme itself. But during that, you know, we're always talking about Coerver anyway, ball mastery and game moves, and they're great tools. You know, kids love to learn a new skill, and 1v1's a great example, you know. And if they've got the ball mastery game moves and the skills game moves, they're great tools as coaches to use. So we use the techniques, if you like, to light the fire in the kids when they're away from home. But set it as a challenge, you know. So it might be, okay, how many can you do in 30 seconds? You know, you've got a week to practice, so we send them the video, but we send them the challenge that goes with that, and then some key tips, you know. Okay, once you've mastered the move on your left and your right, then can you do it quicker? Okay, can you do a little bit more complex? Okay, and they know, this is the key thing, when they get back to practicing next week, that you're following up on that, just for a little bit. You can't, you know, time's so precious.
Sure.
So when you're following up, you know, it can be a minute. Hey, kids, in you come. Right, we practiced last week. What was the move? Yeah. And I guarantee you, the kids that have practiced, they want to show you.
Yeah.
And they'll be, this was the move, you know, or this was the skill. And some of them, you can tell the ones that have practiced, you know.
Yeah.
But what you start creating is that culture as well. There's a regular culture where, hey, you know, coaches paying a little bit of attention because Johnny practiced, or whoever did that set, you know, and you're saying, hey, well done, or that was really good, and you can help them a little bit, 1 or 2 minutes in the session, usually at the start. But by doing that, again, they know that they're going to get recognised, praised for the work they're doing, and the other kids that maybe haven't practiced maybe think, hey, maybe I want to.
That's a great idea. So it kind of spreads. That ethic or that attitude spreads.
And and the truth is, if they've done it well, then, and it starts to impact in their game, then they're going to reap the benefits. And when they reap the benefits, they get more confidence. So they say, hey, I'm going to practice.
Very good.
You know,
brilliant. Gee, anything else to unpack there, or do you want to move on to number 2?
No. Well, the next thing I think is, like all coaches, you know. You want to work with players' image, I call it, you know, where you want to work with players that want to be there, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, depending on what level you're working with, you as a coach, of course, they want to be, if you're enthusiastic and passionate about what you want to do, hopefully they want to be at your practice. The practice was fun, exciting, there was a level of intensity to it, so they should want to be there. But for a player, I think it's probably advice for a player, if anything, is and you can see them, the ones that are dead keen, the one that's always front of the line, ready to go, or first on the pitch, or first to get the ball out, but they've got enthusiasm, they've got a smile on their face, they're really likeable, if that makes sense. It's important that they're likeable. Or you've got the kid that comes in, you know, kind of, you know, but you as a coach can, you know, somebody might just be give them a little lift, you know, how do you get on? Go and get yourself a ball, and, you know, try and help them along the way, but really the player's image. So what does the coach think of you? What does the spectators, parents think of you? Your teammates think of you? Are you trying your best? Are you working with intensity? Are you trying to execute as best as you can this session? It's not sloppy, you know. Yeah. There's nothing worse than a kid, sloppy little practice. They care about what they're doing. They care about it, exactly. And they want to be there, and it's, you know, it takes a shot, he's first to go and get his ball, before you know it, he's back in the line trying to get to the front, that type of thing, you know. Yeah. And they're the kids that you want to, and they'll ask questions, you know, and you can tell that they're listening when you're maybe explaining something or showing them something. You can tell they really want to learn. And funny enough, I think, sorry Joey, but I think girls are quite, are more, they'll ask more questions, you know, and they've got more of that as if they really want to learn. I've found anyway between the girls and the boys.
100%. I mean, I coach two sides, both under 13, one girls, one boys, and it's interesting some of the observations. You know, anecdotally, I've had coaching both. But I would say with the boys group who I've been with for 5-6 years, it's kind of what you said about it spreading, the good attitudes, the kind of good behaviours also spread, right?
100%.
Kids look to certain players in your side, oh, they're behaving like that, good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, that can also work to the negative, right? Where there could be a kid maybe disruptive, and that has a negative impact on the session. But the good can also spread as well.
Exactly, and if you can, like we said earlier about the home practice, you know, if a kid sees you're paying some attention to somebody that's doing something well, or then the other kid, they'll start to behave that way, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very important. Yeah.
Just a little story from my experience with you know, young lads coming straight from school to training. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement, and we just put in a very simple rule: we don't start until they're listening.
Yes.
And this actually took, you know, very simple thing. Yep. This actually probably initially took us quite a while to get complete silence, but it wasn't us asking for the silence. It was other players in the group that would ask for the silence.
Of course.
Quiet. We got to start quiet. Yeah. And then they kind of self-regulated. And maybe that's a tip other coaches could take.
And I think we experience as well as a coach, you know, when you're, you bring everybody in, and don't start your conversation until everybody's in, you know, and sometimes we're really, you know, ready to go, and you're off you go, and Jimmy's still kicking the ball over there, and you know, whoever's tying their shoelace, you know, as you say, get them in, you know, and once they're in and settled, and that silent, it takes a lot for a coach, you know, to just kind of say nothing, just silence, and then we need to, and it becomes a norm, and like you say, and then you can have everybody calm, which is important, and then once we're calm, we can then start to explain the practice. So
and they can improve. That's the environment for them to again kick on, improve, concentrate, and do well in the session.
Come on in, everybody, and shout, and get your come in. Yeah. They notice everyone's coming in. You can now be calm, say nothing, and then, you know, if he's late, you know, he's going to quickly get across there, you know, and be part of the group. You know.
Brilliant. Whilst we're on the topic, I guess that is effective communication. Have you got any other tips around that, like kind of being a good communicator? Any little things that you've used in your career?
Yeah, that was one, you know, where you getting the groups in and stuff. Just depending on the group you're working with. For example, if you're working with little kids, then you change your voice, and you use your level of voice, and you get down to their level. Where you're working in more experienced players, then the voice changes, the information of course changes. But using your voice is, you know, up and down in different types. When you're working with little kids, you go, okay guys, and you come, you know, and you lower your voice, and you get down to their level a little bit more. And when you're working, but use your voice as best you can to kind of control environments.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, G. So we talked about a little bit about the first topic, which was how do we incentivize kids and motivate kids to practice at home. Then we talked about the second one, which is about, I guess, behaviour and identity, I think you called it.
Yeah, image.
Image, personal image.
Yeah.
What's number three? What you got for us on number three?
For number three, I think, you know, how do you build resilience in players and build their confidence and self-belief.
Yeah.
And a lot, of course, rightly, you know, what's a lot of the time it's strengths and weaknesses, but sometimes we concentrate a little bit too much on what they're not good at. But I think every player, you know, even no matter their age, you know, they've got a super skill, and I love using that as that kind of thing with the players. So we use it a lot where we say, well, what's your super skill or super skills? What's your trademark, you know? And it might be something, you know, he's really fast, or God, this kid can finish, or he's great in 1v1. So building through these super skills as well as other areas. Plus, as they get better, you know, left and right, they start to build their confidence. So when they realise that, actually, I'm quite good at that, or I'm getting better at that, you know. And so if they're stepping off the session and they've learned something, or they've improved a little, or you've highlighted that super skill, then you're building their confidence. But also, to build that resilience, it's them knowing that, well, actually, if I make a mistake, then it's fine, you know. It's okay, you know. We're there. Your dad always used this one, Alf, you know, the smart risk takers, you know. We're there for you to play without fear, train without fear, try things, you know. And as coaches, we really need to create that environment, if you like.
Sure.
And But I really do think super skill is a great one. What are they good at? When you talk about even top players, the other players, you always say, oh, Messi was great at protecting the ball, or he stops and starts. Oh, he's fantastic at this, and he's so composed and finishing, and so they always had these super skills.
Yeah.
And so I think that helps a player's confidence. As they come, you're really good at this. We could work on this, but that's what you know.
And as a coach, taking that theme of resilience, I assume, you can build a practice or a set of drills, right, that can also help develop that. And what would that look like?
Again, it could be depending on, if it's more position specific or if it's as a group, but within the practices, you can really tweak your sessions. When you look at a typical session that we would do, sometimes it's coach led, sometimes it's just coach influenced, and then it's of course player led, So at that influencing bit, as you're sort of kind of taking them across the bridge, if you like, that's when you can really build resilience. That it's not going to be too easy, but it's not going to be too hard. So it's challenging, but you're kind of laying out the answers. They've got to find them and explore them. And once they start to do that, they might make a mistake the first time. The next time they go and try and to do it, they might get it right. So you build that resilience up through a lot of your practices, the way you influence the practices, that you're challenging them still. So, and they're learning that sometimes I win, sometimes. So we use competition, So when we're doing practices, it's if you lost that race or you won that race or you scored more goals than the yellow team, and just building up things that's normal. That's what's going to happen as we go through our career. Sometimes we lose, sometimes we win, but as long as we're trying our best, we might make mistakes, but don't be scared to make the mistakes, and brush yourself down. And how do we go again? Oh, I got it right this time, And as a coach, you can a really experienced coach, you can start to really plus and minus that,
And as a parent, Gordon, that's what, to hear the benefit, I guess through any sport, but football, and particularly how you're trying to design the drills, that effect of resilience, helping develop a kid's resilience as a parent, right? That's something that you really hope that your kid can get from the sport.
Yeah, and with kids we're working with on a more regular basis, we can help them take that to their game, into their game. So, everything you're doing in training, should be geared towards that you're going to, it's like sitting an exam, you're doing your training to go and play the game. The games are the exam. So therefore, can we as coaches, or can you as a coach, I think it's a good thing, is just set little targets or little goals within the game. Yeah, you maybe had 10 shots, but 5 were off target, but 2 or 3 were on, and you got 1 goal.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we improve that ratio,
Yeah.
Just small, simple things that you can set them, how many passes can you make, how many times did you receive the ball and give it out successfully to a teammate?
Yeah.
You can really, as basic as you want to, but use the game in that way. So it wasn't about what the score was or things like that. They maybe made, 5 not so good passes, but made 10 good passes, or vice versa, And you can concentrate on these things to build resilience, so they realise that,
Have you also called or identified kids where their super skill is resilience? And I'm just thinking this through.
Yeah,
you can highlight that, right? Johnny's is a resilient character, and the way he trains is in that way, which also can be an example. Again, this theme of spreading it through the team or the squad or whatever. Yeah. That could also.
Yeah, I think it all falls back to that confidence and self-belief thing, So, and that's a key part of that resilience, I think, where. If you know that that you've got a super skill, for example, and I am actually quite good at something, but I maybe made 1 or 2 mistakes today. You're building that belief and that mindset that, well, I maybe need to work a little bit harder in this area or this area, but I'm going to keep going at it and keep trying. And next time I might improve on this, or I might improve on that. And I think using their super skill is a great one to hey, but remember, how many times did you go past the player in the wide area? It was fantastic. Yeah, maybe we could have cut the ball back, or we could have done X, Y, or Z, but that super skill of yours is still there, the type thing, and keep their confidence high.
What's your view, Gordon, in terms of, a lot of grassroots, I guess, clubs in our Scotland and England, they maybe train once or twice a week, max, probably, right? A lot of the grassroots sides. What's your view on the amount of time coaches should spend on weaknesses versus sort of improving strengths? Like, how would you, what would you recommend?
Again, it's back to time, the time you've got with the kids.
Yeah.
For sure, if you depends on the group you're working with, if you're at academy level or grassroots club level or wherever you're working, you'll have certain things you want to cover. But for sure, what kids need is the core skill sets, and keep working on them, being comfortable with the ball, left side, right side. Yeah. Of course, if you've got more time, you can start to focus in on certain areas. But there's for sure, a player being comfortable on his left and his comfortable on the right is what you want to aim towards. That they can pass with the right, pass with the left. First touch is good on both sides.
Yeah.
They can beat a player on the inside and outside. And you're just adding, especially at the young age, 7 to 12-year-old, that type of age, you want to just give them these skill sets that are going to do them.
Yeah.
So as they develop at their ages and stuff, you can start to be, really a bit more specific in some of the things that they might lack in,
So 7 to 12, fundamentals, core skills, and then layer on top. Maybe
start to layer on top. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Hi guys, Jimmy here from the podcast, and we're really proud to announce our new Coerver coaching app, available now for you to download in the iOS and Android stores. It's split into 2 different parts. Number 1, it's for you coaches, whether you're coaching mixed ability or elite level players. There's great content and session planners on there for you, relevant for under 8s, and then there's another section for 8s to 16s as well. So coaches, download now. You can also get access to the Players Hub, which is part of the same app. That's great skills, step-by-step tutorials on how to do the skills and ball masteries. The Coerver 1v1 stuff is all on there, and it's fantastic for your players to practice that at home. Also on there is challenges to disguise the reps and the work really your players need to do to improve those skills. That's all in the app. Download now, and back to the pod. All right, number 4, I think. So we've done, this might be number 5, the resilience point.
I think, number 4 was, and I do it myself, and somebody say, shut up, Gordon, But coaches, especially at the start of a session, for example, you're about to get some start, over talking or over explaining.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes later, you're still, of course, if there's passion and enthusiasm, sometimes, but keep it short and simple. Get action quickly, and then from that you'll start to see some of the problems, and you can then maybe demonstrate or show something that's a solution for that. But get action quickly, Of course, explain what you're going to, this is what we're going to work on today. But I always look at a session as painting a picture, or building a jigsaw,
Yeah.
And layering it up, because this is the vision. That you're trying to get to. This is the picture that you're trying to explain. But don't try and explain the picture right at the start, and it's it's got all these colours, it's got this, it's got that. And the kids are looking at you like, whoa, what's and even the what you say, keep it very simple,
Yeah.
And get action quickly. There's nothing worse as a player, as 5-10 minutes in still, and coach is still talking, no touch the ball. Use the time, get the ball rolling, and then start to take a step back.
Yeah.
It's not about you, it's about them. And then you'll start to coach, you'll start to see some of the problems. So of course, a picture paints 1,000 words, so a demonstration, get it done, out, get it going.
Very good. And I guess also looking at maybe the difference between grassroots coaches, coaching sessions and match days.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Because I would assume, you might interfere and say a little bit more in training than in match day. You hear a lot of commentary often. Maybe it's not coaching, it's more commentary.
Yeah.
What would your advice be about, I guess, how you manage both generally, training and match day?
Yeah. Well, first, like I say, get action, quick explanation or demonstration. Hopefully explain your session well. But from the start, explain very briefly where the session's going. This is why we're doing this. This is why so if it's let's say it's effective possession, we want today we're going to be working on this area of the field or this topic. To start with, we're going to look at some of the core skill sets we're going to work on to get us across the bridge to where we want to go, And explain that very quickly, but simply, and then they know why we're doing what we're doing. This is why we're doing it, because we need these skill sets to get to the final product, if you like, the final picture.
Sure.
And that, depending on the session, on the day, and how it's went, that's the exciting bit as a coach, though, because you can see it taking shape. And you're thinking, right, I'll just playing with it as you go over. Yeah. And you see it taking shape, and it becomes, that's where you get quite excited, it's, wow, they're getting it, but then sometimes you think, well, if it's too easy, let's make it a little bit harder. How can we really, maybe we make the space smaller, and I think that's the beauty of coaching, and because at the end you're hopefully going, yep, there it is. Yeah. Of course, can we do it on Saturday for the game? So I think, get it going. My best bit of advice probably would be, get it going, get the action, step out it for a bit, and then once the ball's been rolling, you might, as soon as you see the first problem, you don't just jump in and stop it there, and then you clock that. Okay, what might happen again? In fact, this is a regular thing. Everybody's taking too many touches, or everybody, right? Okay, hold it. Now I can go in, and then use a simple tool. It might be. I love using the one like say it was effective possession. And it's all messy, and the ball's jumping about, and you're ready to go and right, and you go, well, wait a minute, let's see if
how it goes.
And then you might even analyse yourself and say, well, I should have made this bigger, or I should have made this smaller, but start to have some tools in your toolkit, if you like, And one that I always use is there's two ways of scoring a goal. Of course we score, but it might be 5 passes is also a goal, or 10 passes is a goal.
Sure.
And it's amazing how that can calm the game and get it moving. So through experience, you'll have some tools in your locker that it's going to help these players to start to get to that final picture.
And reach the objective that you're
and it's just after. A simple thing. Okay, hold it there, because you've noticed this. Another way we can score a goal, because it's we're all just heading this way, it's all chaos, is calm. Can we make 5 passes? So score a goal normal, or 5 passes can also score a goal.
Yes. And I think taking it to match day, did a great podcast yesterday, hopefully a great podcast with Mark Robinson, and he talked a lot about player ownership and match day, how important that is, because obviously we can't shout, we can't influence really what's going on the pitch. It's up to the players to decide what's happening. So how do we as coaches empower players to make the right decisions on the pitch? And what you've described there, I think is the prep that you need for the exam. I like your analogy about match day being the exam. Have you got anything, how I try and coach on the sideline on match day is just be super succinct and try not to interfere at all, apart from maybe a little bit at pre-match and a little bit at half-time. Yeah.
That pre-match for sure, and keeping that simple, because you can't fix everything. Yeah. But like you say, if this is how you've been training, so it's back to that, you'll play how you train, So if we were we wanted to share the ball more and move it, and it was maybe use that 5-pass rule in the sessions or the 10 passes, then set some targets, So it could be as okay, we're now together, we're going to play the game. First is, if we make 10 passes in the game, consecutive passes, then for us that's a goal. If we don't give the ball away at throw-ins, one of my pet hates. If we keep
that's got to be another point on this list. It has to be another point on this list.
For sure. That one's another one. But by setting that, so there's number 2. So in this game, can we, at throw-ins, can we keep the ball? If we do that successfully and perhaps even shift it to the opposite channel, that's a goal to us.
Can we talk about this throw-in thing? And obviously this is not a Coerver topic, but it's something that I see every weekend. It's particularly maybe under 11s, saw it all the time. Basically a throw-in, when we have a throw-in, we're giving the ball straight back to the other team. Yeah. The way I try and approach it and help the younger ones is just say one line, one in the middle, one behind. Yeah. And do the one that you see that's on, and do a throw that's not at the neck. Yeah. Try and hit their feet with a throw.
It's back to, and I always remember as a youngster casting my mind back, and through the sideline, somebody, and it was down the line, Yeah. It's kind of avoid that down the line thing,
If it's on, do it.
Of course.
But it's normally not on.
Exactly. Yeah. But one of the key things that I like to do is especially as youngsters and kids, they forget that the throwers, once that ball's gone, he's actually a free player,
Yeah.
So being available, so as soon as it's on, it can be set back to the thrower. But also that kind of staying away rather than just everybody kind of coming to the thrower,
yeah,
you know, and creating these spaces. But keep it simple, you know, where it can go back to go forward.
Yeah.
The objective of the throwing is, don't just think about, like we say, down the line. Can we get it to the other channel? Because as soon as you think about at a throw-in, of course, if it's on and there's something we can take it quickly, certainly as you approach that final third. But for me, I always try and encourage the players to switch the play at a throw-in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Depending on, you know, the area of the field, but certainly for not that final third, you know.
Yes.
Can we think about switching the play?
Yeah.
And that right away, like you say, somebody's coming from, you know, and go away, you know, away to come to get the ball.
Yeah.
Or drop it to perhaps the centre back or whoever it is to go out to the other side.
Yeah.
And be ready to take it quickly, because at that moment that they're organising themselves. If our players are already taking throw-ins quickly, and you can do that in practice, you know. So when you get to your games, you have balls at the side, and we would do that in some sessions, you know, where it's important that when the ball goes out, the next ball's on. So
very good.
Take throw-ins quickly is a key thing as well. You know?
Well, there's a bonus one that we didn't discuss. Let's get back to the list. Number 5.
Yeah, I think with this, it's players playing the way they're facing. And what do I mean by that? You know, and again, it's just enthusiasm and passion. You know, but the balls either came out from this side, and because their body shape's maybe not right, they'll play right back in there, you know. Might be that they're a bit anxious, but 9 times out of 10 you're playing right back into trouble, right back into crowded areas. So it's key as coaches that we're and I always use that one. I always say play the ball to where the least defenders are. And 9 times out of 10, if the balls came from this area, you know, there's going to be defenders in that area. I'm not talking about, you know, depending the area of the field, and they're almost forcing it back into trouble. It comes back out, they force it back. So well, of course, we need our teammates to find space and open space. So one, it's our teammates, but I'll maybe point out things, because sometimes there's a player way out on the other side, and he's the cleverest player on the pitch, because he's got at that point he's got a 1v0. So why are you playing the ball back in here? And it's 9 times out of 10 because they've not scanned, they've not got their body shape right, and when the balls came to them, they've just, especially the young ones, you know, it's normal, you know, and they'll play it back. So if you can start to work on these little key details, you know, who's the cleverest player on the pitch? You know, this player out here, you know. Or I always like to say, play the ball to where the least defenders are.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a nice, so have, even as your coaching goes on, you'll have little phrases that work, that the players can understand, and it becomes then it becomes a habit and an understanding. But yeah, that's one of my pet hates. It's like you just okay, hold it there, you know, like. And 9 times out of 10, it's just because they haven't opened up in their body, and seen the rest of the pitch, and it's as simple as that, you know. And then their first touch is obviously important to look somewhere else, but they've got to look somewhere else. Look to another channels, and always one, you know. Don't play it back into the same channel.
We have a situation that's happening, and obviously the kids are learning, but our centre forward's getting the ball quite a lot at the moment, and he's turning into trouble quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay, a little bit of accountability with him, but the rest of the players, you've got to tell him to set, or you've got a man on, or keep the ball, whatever it is. I think communication 100%. Sometimes isn't there that can help the player that receives the ball.
You know, obviously it's the right timing in communication, all the kind of things. But good communication. And I'm always saying to players as well about, you know, so you communicate through verbally at the right time. I mean, if you're marked, you should give me the ball. You know, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's pointing, and it's a simple thing. You know, where I'll say, so there's different ways of communicate. If Jimmy's going to pass the ball to me, you know, if I open up my shoulders and point.
Yeah.
Then I know where I know where I want it, and I know where I'm probably going next. Why I'm pointing there is because I'm going to switch the ball out or play the ball into the central channel from the wide channel, or so on and so forth. So these little tips you can start to give the kids, you know, depending on how they're doing, rather than facing this way, ball comes, goes back in. It's just really, really useful. And so there's different ways of communicating, and sometimes I love, you know, if I can say to kids, you know, point. Do you want it on your right? Do you want it left? Do you want it in front? Do you want it at your feet? You know,
that's a good tip. I didn't think about pointing. I know you see in the Prem a lot. You know, they're calling for the ball both hands in the air or one hand in the air.
That's
different
simple,
ways to do it.
You know, and that, you know, so obviously checking off your players, pointing to where you want it, but getting them into the good habits and are so vital and so important. Of course, if they're good, at the end of the day, it's back to the basics. If if we can get them comfortable with the ball, then they can play with their head up.
Yeah.
Then they can start to find the spaces and start to think a little bit more about where's the game going, where do I go next,
Yeah. How I mean, you must have seen this a lot in your career about players looking at, I mean, it's actually sometimes a byproduct of too much ball mastery, right? Where they're kind of looking at the ball a lot. And how do you encourage players? Because all grassroots coaches will see this, especially at younger age groups, where they're just dribbling a lot, looking at the ball, not looking up. How can coaches address that in the sessions?
Even in our practices at the start, for example, if we're doing ball mastery, like you say, you start and your head's watching the ball. It's like learning to drive a car, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if we can encourage that, okay, as we're getting comfortable with that, can we always use this phrase, look beyond the first defender, and the first defender being the player in front of you. So no matter where you are on the pitch, look beyond the first defender. Yeah. So even at little ball mastery practices, if we're working with a group or something, and they're all working away, as you say, heads down, I'll go out in front as they're coming across and say, look, I'm the first defender, look beyond me. And you just see them sneaking a look. And eventually, and as they get more comfortable, they start to, and it just really works. And I always use that kind of phrase, are we looking beyond the first defender?
Yeah.
And that, because then we'll find different, and just encourage them to get the ball. Or you can do, if it's fun little kids, red, yellow, and so the red, yellow, and different drills and exercises.
To encourage that.
Head up and stuff,
Brilliant. I think we're getting towards the end. Are we on number 7 or number 6? I've lost track.
6.
Number 6. What is number 6?
How do you explain to players to play quick but calm, especially kids, Wait a minute, how can I play quick and calm, So I think that's it's an important thing is that when they're, especially when you get into that games formats and near the end of your session and it's, and it's really messy and it's all frantic and there's no way you're going to, how do you calm them down, So we want to play quick. We want to encourage 1 and 2 touch when we can. There's nothing worse than a ball, maybe a pass going in and a player taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it all gets tight, lose the ball, So encouraging them to play quick but calm. And it's back to that rule I used before, with that 5-pass rule or 10-pass rule. It really works a treat. I've seen just by making that comment, you're maybe watching the game at the end and you're thinking, this isn't what I visualised, And we've worked on this, we've worked on the core skills, we've worked on putting them into different, but suddenly it's a game, And that, so how do you take that, not the excitement, of course it's fun, but take that adrenaline and everything where it's all 100 miles per, going really fast. You say, right, we need to play quick and calm here. And I'll use that one all the time with the kids. If I see a game's going on, okay, just hold the kids. 2 ways to score, remember? You don't need to force it all the time and win it, lose it, win it, lose it, win it, lose it. Can we keep it a bit? So if you make 5 passes or if you make 10 passes, depending on the level, make it achievable. Yeah. That's also a goal. And it's amazing how that little rule works well in a practice like that.
I think the other important maybe note here for grassroots coaches is make sure parents are aware of what you're trying to do, because if you're working on that in training and then the parents or coaches are saying something else, something different on match day, kids get confused.
Of course.
Wait, do you want me to be quick and calm, or do you want me to get rid quickly?
Exactly, get rid of it. What are you doing touching it there? Yeah.
And exactly. You see them confused. You see young kids confused.
100%, and that's a big problem, and again, it's just through probably enthusiasm and, they don't want to get caught with the ball. And so if you're shouting for the side or, get rid of it or quick, that's just building the anxiety and the pressure, And, so they need to learn that, and it's a normal reaction, but if we don't try and fix it in a right manner, maybe in training where we're using these different techniques, then come Saturday they're just going to panic, pass, and and like you say, the shouts, get rid of it or quicker, or
But wait a minute, we've worked in training. How do we hook turn out of there and go somewhere else?
The best thing is 1 and 2 touch. If we can get them, obviously the more as they evolve, if they can start playing that ball learning that 1 and 2, you can do lots of lovely little practices. 1 and 2 touch, you get moving the ball, shifting the ball, little rondos, and they get used to it, and then they start to get a rhythm, and before you know it, other teams chasing the game, the gaps are appearing. And that's where and once you learn that, that by keeping it, there's a reason we're doing this, playing quick and calm. Yeah. It's not to force it, playing quick and calm to create spaces so we can then go and, hurt teams.
The rondo. I've got to tell you a quick story. We're lucky enough to be in Barcelona last week.
Yeah,
watched the under-19s train, and first 10 minutes is the rondo, and the precision, the quality, the focus, the intensity. It's something different. I can't really compare. I haven't been to a Prem training ground recently or anything like that. But it was obviously, compared to Grassroots, it was something different.
Yeah, of course.
Very simple practice.
Yeah.
But wow. Yeah. It was amazing.
Can you do that with Grassroots kids? Of course you can.
Yeah.
And it's about playing with numbers. I always say there's different things you can change. So you can change the space, the numbers, or the time you put on something. Suddenly you put a time on something, it's maybe quick and rushed. Rather than. But if can you get it quick and calm? So you can play with different things within practices, and it might be, especially with numbers. So with little kids, instead of going, it might even be instead of going 5v3, you go 5v1.
Yeah.
Just to get it going.
Yeah.
All right, now it's 5v2 or make the space bigger.
So these are key ways to encourage success or to improve success. Make space bigger, reduce numbers. Anything else that you think?
Even like the timers. So even certainly with better players, you might be saying, okay, you got 1 minute. How many passes within this practice can you keep the ball away from they three in this minute? 10, 11. So quick passes, 1 touch, 2 touch. Always encouraging that kind of play.
Very good. Okay, penultimate one. We're on number 7.
Number 7, yeah. Quick fire finishing. You'll see it at every level. Where you're saying, go on. You've got the half yard, and and as you know at Coerver, we have all these great little stops and starts and fakes and feints to get half a yard to get a shot off, probably. So we always use that terminology. Quick fire finishing. Player gets it. Of course, if he's not so good on one foot, he's maybe going to think, I'll get this onto my better foot. By that time, the ball's gone. So it's even more reason, or the opportunity's gone, It's even more reason to work on both sides of the body, of course. Yeah. But just get these players into that habit of, and you can do it in all your different exercises where when they get that, create that space or that little yard or an opportunity, you're using different ways and techniques just to encourage quick fire finishing. Sometimes we'll say to players, a 3-step or 4-step finish. So once you've done the move, you've got maximum 3 steps to get your shot off, and you can actually see them thinking, maybe overthinking, but things like that, or 1 and 2 touch finishing. Most goals, as are scored with 1-touch finishes.
Yeah.
So it practices, so if you're in a situation, you don't have to take the touch, get it down, take another touch, it's gone. You were saying, finish it 1 touch or 2 touch, or as I say, get a little half yard, a little 3-step finish.
Yeah. And would you, under 12, Gordon, would you recommend that there is repetition right and left foot in your finishing section of your practices?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Hard as it is, because you're going to obviously, there's probably a higher percentage are strongly right side, as but it's very important. And the more the kids do the ball mastery, I always say to the parents and the kids as well about the ball mastery work. It's almost like a fast track to being technically balanced on both sides.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you start to get the ball on your left, then we need to, the kicking technique needs to improve on that side. Or on
start
the right.
Passing it in, because...
Yeah, you can do small goals, gates, little targets, but start with, just encouraging that pass into the net so there's maybe no goalkeepers. But again, you have to have that mixture, because for sure, there's nothing better than putting it down the side of the goalkeeper, So you want players to understand that, I've maybe beat the defender, but am I looking beyond the defender, look beyond the first defender? Where's the goalkeeper?
Yeah.
And it might be simple things like, little goals in the corners, little cones in the corners and stuff.
And that's your target.
That's your target, But we also need to, it's back to, come Saturday and you've trained all week without goalkeepers, which is fine because we're getting accuracy, we're building it up, but it's nothing better than teaching players how to put it round a goalkeeper, down the side of a goalkeeper, go round a goalkeeper, chip a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And then you're getting that courage of the head up and, looking as well.
What is your view on if it is 1v1 with the goalie? How can you help players think about that? We're seeing a lot more of that in our age group, U13 at the moment, where it's 1v1. Are you asking for that quick finish like you said? Or I guess it depends on the position of the goalkeeper, whether you try and take it round, or what's the cue for the player? What should we be teaching our players?
Again, it depends on the goalkeeper and where he's positioned, and if he's out of his goal, and it's back to having, again, the more tools we can give the players, to do that. Maybe he's really great at 1v1 and fast, and he knows that I can round his goalkeeper, you know.
Yeah.
But if the goalie's off his line, so it's taking in information where the goalkeeper is, what position he is, how fast is he coming? Is he coming? Has he stayed on his line? You know, so much information. But if you're not practicing in all these different scenarios, then come Saturday, you know, you're like, well, this is the first time I've been in this position. You know?
Yeah.
So you need to practice it.
Yeah.
And that'll, you know, but you can definitely set up your practices in different ways that he's going to learn how to put it round the goalie, put it down the side of the goalie, go round the goalie. So create these situations within your practices.
Brilliant. All right, Gordon, I think we've got to that time. It's the last one, the last common challenge. We've all got a Grassroots and a solution for it, please.
Well, I think this one's... we've always used this phrase, or we certainly use this, you know, think forward, look forward, play forward. But it's understanding what exactly that means, you know, and there's so much to that. But if we can create these types of players within our practices that have that mentality, then we're going to get some success and some attacking and exciting football, you know. But it's understanding what that means. So the first time I heard that phrase was in Benfica. You know, we do a lot of work out there. And when I thought about it and I watched how they played, what it meant is they were really, at the end of the day, they were so comfortable around the ball and on the ball. They were always playing with their eyes up, but they were moving the ball quickly and shifting the ball to create the spaces to go forward. So when it does appear, which in good teams that are well-organized, defensive organisations, everything, you know, at these levels, and you'd watch it, but the little opening would come and the players could play through. It would be either runs through, but it was because they had that mentality. Yeah, I'm thinking forward, looking forward, play forward when I can. So they had to work hard to get the so obviously it's at a higher level, academy level, pro level. But if you can take that information back down and break it down and think about that, if we can get our players comfortable on the ball, you know, left side, right side, playing with their head up, got all the core skills, and now teach them the right moments that they can go and play through. So that means sharing the ball well, keeping the ball well. Even simple things like Grassroots every see it where sees with the goalkeeper, and you're thinking, okay, even there's lots of space, you know, and they take the touch back, and you're going, well, if you were thinking forward, looking forward, playing forward, you would be starting to run with the ball, step into the game, positive first touch, you know, bait the players out to go and play around them, you know. So that think forward, look forward, play forward thing for me is the understanding what exactly that means. And I think it's about, you know, that baiting, that keeping. When I can step into the game, but always being aware, although I'm playing to the left here, I'm thinking there's that gap, you know.
Yeah.
Now I can play through.
Yeah.
So it's when you can play through, you know.
And at the Grassroots level, obviously it's also reliant on the player receiving the ball. And I think loads of coaches listening to this will identify with this. Often players asking for the ball in the wrong position, they are opposed, their opponent is next to them, and maybe the first part's right, they've had that positive touch like you said, set up the pass, it might be the right pass, but the person asking for the ball is standing next to their opponent. So it's A and B, right? It's making sure
your team, exactly, and it's teaching players that, you know, that and you see it so much at Grassroots, you know, and it's just how we can work that, like, so how do I go and show, how do I play between the lines? You know, all these little things that we can bring into our practices. Yeah. That and if we have this think forward, look forward, play forward mentality, if I am playing between lines or I am going and showing, then I'm going to get the ball. You know.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, Gordon, we've gone through the 8. I think they're brilliant sort of add-ons to part 1. So this will be part 2 of our series on these sort of common problems in the Grassroots game. My last question is about 1v1 because I think that's the thing that probably all draws us to Coerver.
Yes.
What sort of excites you about the topic, and how have you seen it represented in the players that you teach?
Your dad, Alf, said something recently, you know, less is more. And I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, yeah, he's spot on, you know, because players, what excites me about it is if you work it, for sure, players will, they'll not take 20 moves. You know, so you maybe worked with them for 3 years, for whatever it is, but they'll take 1 or 2 moves that works for them, and it helps them create space. Yeah. So it might be a midfielder who's suddenly got a little change of direction so he can go and switch a play. But suddenly you taught him at a young age, and he's learned away, and then, you know, you go and watch him playing, and years on later, and he's still using that move. Yeah. Or it might be a winger who's, you know, dipped the shoulder and went by somebody, and you know, you've maybe worked on that move with him over a period of time, and because they get a little bit, so it just takes them to get one bit of success from it in their game, and that would be maybe creating space in the midfield or getting by a player, or and you find that it becomes part of them. It becomes one of their trademarks, if you like. You know, you see, because he always does it. Or it's one move or two moves. That's all they need. You know, but of course, at a young age, we can give them, you know, 2 or 3, 4, 5 options throughout their time, different options, and they'll pick the ones that work for them. And it's always nice to see some players prefer a hook turn, some players prefer, you know, a little, you know, scissors move. Or, but the reason they like it, because it works for them. They get space.
Sure.
You know, and that's great to see in players as they'll take that through their whole career, you know.
And regardless of ability, I guess, or level, right?
Level, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what, but and it becomes a key part of them.
Yeah.
And a key part of their game, whatever level they're playing at, because they get success from it.
Yeah, brilliant. Gordon, really enjoyed this one. Thanks very much for being on the podcast.
Jimmy, thank you. I really enjoyed it as well, and it was great to catch up and see you again as well.
Good stuff. Thanks, Gordon.
Thanks, Jimmy.
That was wicked. We've got to do part 3.
Was that all right?
Was so good, mate.